how do we feel about adding items to the library? Does that make sense? The 3 different ways: manually, magic wands, and browser. Sometimes a browser one can be kind of finicky and not always work. The other thing is you can add things from Amazon. I do that a lot. Like sometimes it's harder to like deal with the sometimes the Amazon metadata is actually better than like the library website metadata. Don't tell anyone. Sometimes it's worse though. So it's really kind of like, you never really know what the metadata is because it's kind of behind the scenes, and that's what gets pulled.
So the browser extension is analyzing that page I'm on, pulling out, like it can recognize metadata.
Yeah.
Pulls out whatever happens to be there.
Yep. So let me just go.
If I go to like a random website that isn't set up for this.
Yeah, it'll be a website. So for example, here I pulled up Amazon because I was going to go find a book, and it's just saying, the plugin is saying this is a website, and you can add a website. Like there are some things that I've added that are websites. So here's a couple examples of items that I've added that are websites, and I wanted to cite the website. Oh, also I can say, as far as the PDFs, I didn't mention, you can also add the PDFs if you already have them saved. So say you want to like go back now that you're learning all of this stuff and you're like, great, I'm going to get my stuff organized. You're going to go through and you add all your things. You can, if you already have like a file folder of PDF somewhere on your computer, you can go to, you know, your item, say this item right here. Oh, here's some more diacritical marks for you. And do the little paper clip and add a copy of a file or a link. And that'll add it to the record here. So you can do that.
I just took a PDF from a folder and dragged it over on Zotero.
Yeah, you can do that too. So down
half a second, and then it pulled out all the metadata for me.
Oh yeah, that's great. So I do have this. Oh, I guess this one didn't. Oh no, I'm gonna try to open it. That's not really what. I think this item, this is just like a PDF that maybe somebody sent to me or something like that, and I just dumped it into Zotero so that I didn't know where it was. But yeah, if you just add a PDF, it can often, if the PDF has good metadata, it'll read all of that. And
something I found useful just before I started working with it, and I'm still a beginner, I had a student type in like the bibliographies from 3 or 4 articles that are all going into this book of mine. So it was my bibliographies, but I'd never actually done this. So he put them in, but he could just go into WorldCat and pull them, because a lot of them were books that we don't have at Vanderbilt that I'd gotten in other places. And that's how he did it really
yeah,
fast.
absolutely. I've imported things from WorldCat. Like I said, I've imported things from Amazon. I mean, so here's this is annoying. I'm using my own book as an example. There we go. So the little button turned into a book, and you can just click it straight from Amazon. And that'll save the Amazon link too, so you can go back to the item on Amazon if you do that for whatever reason. But yeah, basically anything, the browser will import it. And again, so sometimes when you do Amazon, this is a good example of this, is this pulled in the entire abstract. Again, it really depends on the metadata. Like some Amazon pages will do this and some won't, and some have it, some don't, it doesn't matter. But you can add it if you want an abstract. You can put as much or as little information in these records as you want. The other thing I sometimes encourage students to do is this notes tab. You can add whatever you want. I mean, you could do like a kind of annotation, so you know like what the deal was with this book, like why you're saving it. You could also do like quotations. Like I thought about like doing pull quotes and just adding them, keeping the quotes from that source that I want to remember in Zotero. So I don't have to like go through and find it in the PDF again. Or, I mean, I'm a paper and pen note taker, which is like not that efficient because I can't ever find anything. But if I just added it directly to the record here, like I would know, like in this book, here's the important quotes that I want to use, you know, something like that. There's also this tags. So some of the items, when you get things brought in automatically, it might bring in, there might be metadata for tags for some reason. And you can delete them if they're not helpful. You can add different ones. That's just like another way of like organizing your stuff. Okay, so that's adding items, which is very exciting and cool in itself because it's just, for me, just keeping everything organized in this way is so great. And I remember that like, I don't like lose things. But the really, really cool thing is citing using the magic of Zotero. So in Microsoft Word, when you're writing, you are doing a quote and then you want to cite your quote. So you go to the Zotero tab in Microsoft Word. So this is sometimes tricky. Sometimes it doesn't show up. Sometimes it doesn't work properly. Let me just show you how to make sure it's working properly first. And again, this is something like you can Google like Microsoft Word plugin Zotero, and like there's help for you to do that there too. But basically you go to preferences, you go to cite, there's this tab that says word processors, and you have reinstall or install, whatever the Microsoft Word add-in. Close everything, Zotero and Microsoft Word, open it again, it should work. Oh, and again, here's like the example of all of the citation styles and when they were most recently updated. So for example, Chicago was just updated last year. And well, this version of it was updated even more recently. So these are all here. Okay, so we're here, it's working. We have our Zotero tab. We go to add or edit citation. So the first time you cite something in a document, it's going to ask you what style are you going to use. So you can go ahead and find whichever one you want to use. Make sure all of this stuff is as you want it. And then it'll have the search bar and you'll be able to search anything in your library. So an author name, a title of the article or the book or whatever. And it's not, well, so we'll just pick whatever. We'll add a page number, hit enter, and there's the citation, and it looks good. Easy. So then you do it again, and you cite something else. And a different page. And there's the citation. This one's not that great. Like you don't really need that first edition thing in there. But if there's a problem, or if it doesn't look exactly how you want, you can go back to your library, find the offending document and make whatever changes you need. So like, I probably don't really want that there. Those are fine. Or like maybe I don't necessarily want the editor there. I can take that out. And then I can go back here and refresh. And now it looks a little nicer. And then the second time I cite the same work, when I search for it, it'll say, here's something you already cited. And so you can, it's really easy to just cite that same thing again. And it knows that it'll do the shorter version of the citation. This is, again, Chicago, so it might be a little bit different. So you can change this. So I actually have submitted an entire book chapter once in Chicago styled, and then the editor got back to me and said, actually, we want this in MLA. I was like, well, okay. And so I went in to my document preferences and I went to MLA. And I clicked OK. And there you go. It looks like I'm gonna have to do a little bit of work to like fix the punctuation, but you know, I still was able to do it. Yes.
I'm actually in a similar situation right now. I have a manuscript prepared with one style and I need to switch it to another. If I've already done everything manually with the first draft, there's no easy switch, right?
No, sorry. The way, yeah, you're gonna want to go, it probably will be easier to go through and instead of switching everything manually, going through and doing everything with Zotero. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I've done that before too, where I've done an entire manuscript by hand, and then I guess it was like a chapter, and then I was adding the chapter to a larger manuscript that I wanted all to be done in Zotero. So I had to like go back and then Zoteroize the whole thing. But that is kind of worth it because at that point you can change things and it makes things a lot easier if you have to update stuff like that. Okay, so now that we have a few citations, so we have 3 citations from 2 sources. We get to the end of our paper or whatever, and we can add our bibliography with one click. Done. And that's it. The bibliography one is the easy. That's literally one click. It pulls everything that you've cited in this document into a bibliography. We can change this again if we want.
This would have saved me like at least half a day's work on my last book.
Oh yeah.
Maybe more.
I teach a seminar for the master students that are writing a thesis. And I always teach them this at the beginning because I'm like, you're gonna want, like, it's their first big project. So I'm like, you're gonna want to use Zotero. And they're like, I should have been using this my entire program. I'm like, yeah, I know you should. So now we're trying to like get the first years on board so that they, you know, by the end of their program, they have everything added in their library that they're ever going to need. And it just makes citation a lot easier. It makes it correct, which is nice. That's basically, yeah.
Could you just go back when I got lost because I was closing down all of my Word files so I could do what you were doing to get the add-on?
Yes.
And you went into Zotero to build the add-on for, okay.
Yes, so in Zotero, you go to preferences.
Okay.
I think it's in a different place. So I'm on a PC right now. I think if on a Mac, it's under file, but under PC, it's under edit. But it's preferences, and then up here, it's the cite button, and then it's the word processors tab.
Oh. And then just install Microsoft Word add-in.
Yes.
Bang, installation was successful. That's
It's,
great.
yeah, and then you'll probably want to close out both Zotero and Microsoft Word and reboot them.
Okay.
Oh, and that's worth mentioning too. So when you're using the browser plugin or when you're using Microsoft Word, you want to also have your Zotero app open or else they won't work. And they'll tell you that, but I always forget sometimes if I haven't used it in a while. I'm like, why can't I cite it? It's like, oh, it's not open, you're dummy. Yes, Derek.
So I have an answer to Betsy's question about italics.
Oh, yay.
Because I
Wow.
followed your advice and I Googled it and I found a support forum.
I told you their forums are great.
And then I just tried it. So I'm going to share my screen just for a second.
Please do. Let me stop. There we go.
So Betsy, what I did, I just took a book. I wrote this book, but I went into the
This is
title.
why you're some kind of provost now, because you know how to use the Google, and I've just been wondering this for about 5 months.
So I just made up something to italicize in this book title, but I use HTML tags.
Oh, easy.
Tag.
Okay.
I
I
wasn't
wondered if that worked.
because it just looks like that in the list, right? You see the tags, but when I added this as a citation, you can see now that the title, the word principles is unitaliced because it's italicized twice, right? So it had the effect. The little
Yeah.
tags had the right effect there. So
Oh, thank you. Excellent.
yay.
Great. That's great. Are there any other questions? That's pretty much all I have.
Here's what, oh, sorry, Anna.
No, please.
Okay, quick question. So what if I just want to print out everything in one of my Zotero folders and I don't, whether I'm going to be citing them or not?
Yeah, you can definitely do that. So there's actually a really easy way to do it. So I'm gonna, go to this, take one of these collections or whatever. I mean, you could do your whole library, I suppose. But if you just right click and do create bibliography from collection,
Great.
you could just do that. And then you can do any of these options. Usually what I do though is like copy to clipboard, go into Microsoft Word, and then paste.
Okay,
There it is.
perfect. Thank you.
I teach this all the time, and every time I do that, it's just magic. Like, look at that bibliography, it's beautiful.
Well, I had a question. I know that there are some other products out there very similar to Zotero, and I think that there's some events actually maybe even next week for the others. So I'm just wondering, like, what would be your rationale for choosing Zotero over one of those other ones?
So first of all, it's free. That's an easy one. The forums, the support forums that Derek was talking about, like, they're so thorough, they're so good. Like, I've never had an unanswered question about Zotero. Every time I have to troubleshoot or figure something out, there was one year, there was a student who didn't have a laptop who was doing everything on an iPad. And I was like, I don't know if we can make this work, but we did, because like there's a web version of Zotero that you can use. And then there was like someone had like hacked a bookmarking thing so that you could like add things on the iPad into your web version of your library. Crazy. So all that information is there, really helpful community. And then also because and this has to do with it being free also, because it's like open source, you can transfer it between institutions. So I'm working with a student right now who had been using Mendeley from a different institution and now started a PhD here. And she was like, how am I going to transfer my stuff, or can I? And luckily, I think we can, because we also have a Mendeley subscription. But if you end up at an institution that doesn't, like, who knows? So it's just transferable that way. It's not tied to a subscription. It's not tied to your institution. It's all, you might have to like change your email address on your account if you need to. But other than that, it's really transferable. And there's tons of space, like storage space. You can pay for extra if you need it. I don't know of anyone who does that. Even like some of my colleagues that like have crazy bibliographies like libraries, I don't think they pay for any of their storage. So those are my reasons. Also, I mean, at the end of the day, it really is your personal preference. Like, and this is my preference, so I'm especially enthusiastic about it. But it really is up to what works for you.
And I suspect there may be subtleties here. Zotero did come out of the humanities community. And so I
Yes.
can imagine there may be some things here that are a little more friendly to the types of sources that you would be using.
That's probably true. Yeah. Again, like I don't want, and I was mentioning Derek to you earlier, my run-in with some engineering students this morning. Like I don't actually know that much about like STEM anything. So I don't know what those real differences would be. Maybe like really long lists of authors. I don't know. Because that's the other thing is citation styles are different too in different fields. So I'm not sure what it would look like for like STEM stuff for citation styles. But.
Yeah, but even then I see like in the citation options, there's the American Chemical Society, there's IEEE, there's Nature.
And
So
you can, if you're like
Our
really fancy and savvy, you can like create your own style. Like there's one faculty in the div school who like he's done like a code and created his like imported his own like styles into Zotero to use. I don't really know how or why, but you can because it's open source again. You can kind of like do that. I can't help you with that, but I'm sure the forum on the website can.